Rules Glossary. This glossary includes game terms that have new or revised meanings in this playtest document, as well as terms such as creature type that aren't defined in the 2014 Player's Handbook. The terms are organized alphabetically. If a term doesn't appear here, use its definition in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and when playtesting this document, do not use the rules glossary of any other Unearthed Arcana article. So they're going to re-release the rules glossary every time with the new definitions. With every new Unearthed Arcana that comes out, the rule glossary is going to supersede the previous one. The ability check is one of 3 types of D20 tests. The rules often call for an ability check, and the DM can also call for an ability check. Determining which ability to use when a creature attempts something other than an attack roll or saving throw that has a chance of meaningful failure. When the outcome is uncertain and narratively interesting, the dice determine the result. The ability check has the following special rules. Skills. When you make an ability check, the rules or the DM determine whether a skill proficiency is relevant to the check. If you have a relevant skill proficiency, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. For example, if a rule refers to a strength check, acrobatics, or athletics, you can add your proficiency bonus to the check if you have acrobatics or athletics proficiency. Action required. Making an ability check requires you to take an action unless a rule says otherwise. Several of the named actions, such as hide and influence, include ability checks. The DM may override this requirement and allow a particular ability check to be made as part of a bonus or as no action at all. The DM determines the difficulty class of an ability check and can override a DC specified in the rules. The typical DC table shows the most common DCs. The default DC for a check is 15, and it is rarely worth calling for an ability check if the DC is as low as 5, unless the potential failure is narratively interesting, like climbing a great height. If a task is very easy, it's a DC 5. If it's easy, it's a 10. If it's medium, we got a 15. Hard is 20. Very hard is 25. And nearly impossible is 30. I like that they specified that 15 is the average. I love that they did that. Armor training is the new name for armor proficiency. Any existing rule that involves armor proficiency now applies to armor training. If you wear light, medium, or heavy armor and lack armor training with that type of armor, you have disadvantage on any D20 test you make that involves strength or dexterity, and you can't cast spells. If you equip a shield and lack armor training with shields, you don't gain the AC bonus of the shield. Artisan Tools. Oh, please be good. Artisan's Tools are a category of tool for which a character can gain tool proficiency. For a list of Artisan's Tools, see the 2014 Player's Handbook, but ignore the prices. Those tools now cost 15 apiece, 15 GP. Attack action. When you take the attack action, you can make one attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Equipping weapons. You can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of this action, even if the attack is with an unarmed strike. You can equip or unequip one weapon. Moving between attacks. If you move on your turn, you can use some or all of that movement to move between the attacks of this action if you have a feature, such as extra attack that gives you more than one attack as part of the attack action. Attack roll. The attack roll is one of 3 types of D20 test. This Unearthed Arcana article uses the rules for attack rolls and critical hits found in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Arcane Spells. An arcane spell draws on the ambient magic of the multiverse. Bard, sorcerer, warlock, and wizard harness this magic, as do artificers. For a partial list of arcane spells, see the spell list section elsewhere in this doc. Barkskin. Here's a new version of the barkskin spell. Second level transmutation, primal. It's a bonus action, range of touch, verbal somatic material, handful of bark, concentration up to 1 hour. It is concentration, 1 hour. You touch one willing creature to protect it with regenerating bark. Until the spell ends, the target's skin assumes a bark-like appearance. And at the start of each of the target's turns, the target gains a number of temp hit points equal to your spellcasting ability mod, plus proficiency. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 3rd level or higher, you can target 1 additional willing creature for each slot above 2nd. Wow. That is a spell. That is a spell. Wow. 1 additional. It lasts an hour. 1 additional per spell slot, and it lasts an hour. And they keep gaining temp hit points. That is so good. I love it. I love it. The old version was like it sets your AC to 16 if you're not wearing armor or something. Wasn't great. Wasn't great. This, pretty cool. If you have blind sight, you can effectively see within a specific range without relying on physical sight. Within that range, you can effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you are blinded or in darkness. Moreover, you can effectively see a hidden or invisible creature in that range. I like that they specified hidden. Crazy strong, absolutely. I love that you can put it on multiple people. Climb speed. A climb speed can be used to move on a vertical surface without expending the extra movement normally associated with climbing. A climb speed can also be used in any situation in which your speed is usable. Some creatures have the spider climb trait, which allows their climb speed to work even on the underside of horizontal surfaces. Creature type. Do we have new types? All creatures in D&D, including every player character, has a special tag in the rules that identifies the type of creature they are. Most player characters are of the humanoid type. Here's a list of the game's creature types in alphabetical order. Aberration Beast, Celestial Construct, Dragon Elemental, Fey Fiend, Giant, Humanoid Monstrosity, Ooze Plant, Undead. Is anything missing? These types don't have rules themselves, but some rules in the game affect creatures of certain types in different ways. For example, the description of the Cure Wounds spell specifies the healing doesn't work on constructs or on a construct. D20 Test. The term D20 Test encompasses the 3 main D20 rolls of the game: ability check, attack roll, and saving throw. If something in the game affects D20 Test, it affects all 3. Whenever a player character rolls a 1 for a D20 test, that character gains Heroic Inspiration. The DM determines whether a D20 test is warranted in any given situation. Dash action. Taking the dash action allows you to make a bonus move during the current turn. This is a huge change from before. Before, it actually doubled your movement after modifiers. So Tabaxi could dash and you could multiply your speed. It became kind of ridiculous. Difficult terrain. If a space is difficult terrain, every foot of movement in that space costs 1 extra foot. For example, moving 5 feet through difficult terrain costs 10 feet of movement. Difficult terrain isn't cumulative. Either a space is difficult or it isn't. A space is difficult for a creature if the space contains any of the following: creature that isn't tiny, furniture that is small or larger, heavy snow, heavy undergrowth. Ice. Liquid that's between shin, waist deep. Any deeper and you need to swim. Between shin and waist. So if it's below your shin, you're good. It's not difficult. If it's above your waist, you have to swim. Narrow opening that is sized for a creature 1 size smaller. A pit or another gap of 2 to 5 feet. Rubble, slope of 20 degrees or more. The DM may determine that other things count as difficult terrain based on the examples here. Divine Spells. A divine spell draws on the power of gods and the outer planes. Clerics and paladins harness this magic. For a partial list of divine spells, see the spell list section elsewhere in the doc. Exhausted is now a condition. While you are subjected to the exhausted condition, known in older books as exhaustion, you experience the following effects. Levels of exhaustion. This condition is cumulative. Each time you receive it, you gain 1 level of exhaustion. You die if your exhaustion level exceeds 10. It used to be 6. D20 rolls affected. When you make a D20 test, you subtract your exhaustion level from the D20 roll. Spell save DCs are affected. Subtract your exhaustion level from the spell save DC of any spell you cast. Brutal. Finishing a long rest removes 1 of your levels of exhaustion. When your exhaustion level reaches 0, you are no longer exhausted. They increased it to 10 and they changed it quite a bit. I actually like the exhausted change. I'm okay with it. Expertise is a special feature that enhances your use of a particular skill proficiency. If you gain expertise, you gain it in 1 skill in which you have proficiency. You can never have expertise in the same skill proficiency more than once. When you make an ability check with a skill proficiency in which you have expertise, your proficiency bonus is doubled for that check. A fly speed can be used to move through the air. While you have a fly speed, you can stay aloft until you land, fall, or die. While flying, you fall if you're in-cap or restrained. If you have the hover trait, you can stay aloft even while in-capped or restrained. The gaming set tool. Gaming sets are a category of tool with which a character can gain tool proficiency. For a list of gaming sets, see the Player's Handbook 2014. But ignore the prices. The new cost is 1 gold piece. Exhausted needs to be a little meatier. Think so? I think that, it would probably be okay if more things caused exhaustion. We'll see. I would like to know what causes exhaustion with that list. Yeah. Exhaustion in and of itself is okay, but it's going to live or die based off of what causes it. Like if they add dropping, like going to 0 hit points and dropping to death saves gives you exhaustion, that would make this pretty. Increasing it to 10 I feel like that implies that there's going to be more. While you are grappled, so this is the grappled condition. While you are grappled, you experience the following effects. Your speed is 0 and can't change. You have disadvantage on attack rolls against any target other than the grappler. The grappler can drag or carry you, but the grappler suffers the slowed condition while moving unless you were tiny or 2 or more sizes smaller than the grappler. While grappled, you can make a dexterity or strength saving throw against the grapple's escape DC at the end of each of your turns. So it's not opposed anymore, it's escape DC. Ending the condition on yourself on a success. The condition also ends if the grappler is in cap or if something moves you outside the grappler's range, grapple's range without using your speed. The guidance spell has changed and it's harsh. Here's a new version of the guidance spell. It's cantrip still, guidance, divine and primal, casting time reaction. It's pretty good. Which you take in response to you or an ally within 30 feet of you failing an ability check. It's got a range of 30 feet, verbal, somatic, instantaneous. You channel magical insight to the creature who failed the ability check. That creature can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the check, potentially turning it into a success. Once a creature rolls the die for this spell, that creature can't benefit from the spell again until the creature finishes a long rest. Not a fan of limiting this. Maybe a short rest, but a long rest feels kind of harsh. A long rest hurts. Maybe, honestly, I don't like limiting it at all, but I'm willing to compromise on a short rest. The help action. When you take the help action, you do one of the following. Assist ability check. Choose one of your skill proficiencies and one ally who can see or hear you. You give advantage to the next ability check that ally makes with the chosen skill. Keep in mind, this says you have to be proficient. This benefit expires if the ally doesn't use it before the start of your next turn. To give this assistance, you must be near enough to the ally to assist verbally or physically when the ally makes the check. DM has final say on whether your assistance is possible. You can assist an attack roll. You momentarily distract an enemy within 5 feet of you, granting advantage to the next attack roll by one of your allies against that enemy. This benefit expires at the start of your next turn by one of your allies. I like that they changed that. So it used to be you had to pick an ally and pick an enemy, but now you just pick an enemy and whoever hits it next gets advantage. That's great. That is a great change. Heroic Inspiration. When you have Heroic Inspiration, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a D20 test. You decide to do so immediately after rolling the D20. Okay. Gaining Heroic Inspiration. A player character gains Heroic Inspiration if the character rolls a 1 for a D20 test. That 1 must be on the D20 used for the test total, not on a D20 that was re-rolled or discarded. This Heroic Inspiration represents a character's resolve to do better than after fumbling an attempt. The DM can also award Heroic Inspiration to a player character who's done something that is particularly heroic or in character. Only one at a time. You can never have more than one instance of Heroic Inspiration. If something gives you Heroic Inspiration and you already have it, you can give your inspiration to a player character in your group who lacks it. Love it. The Hidden Condition. While you are hidden, you experience the following effects. Concealed. You aren't affected by any effect that requires its target to be seen. If you are hidden when you roll initiative, you have advantage on the roll. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage. The condition ends on you immediately after any of the following occurrences. You make a sound louder than a whisper, an enemy finds you, you make an attack roll, you cast a spell with a verbal component, or you aren't heavily obscured or behind any cover. The hide action. With the hide action, you try to conceal yourself. To do so, you must make a dexterity stealth check while you're heavily obscured or behind 3/4 cover or total cover. And you must be out of any visible enemy's line of sight. If you can see a creature, you can discern whether it can see you. I like that. If you see a creature, you can discern whether it can see you. If I see you, I know whether you see me. On a successful check, you are hidden. Make note of your check's total, which becomes the DC for a creature to find you with a perception. Incapped. I'm sure they changed this. While you are incapped, you experience the following effects. You can't take actions or reactions. That's the same. Your concentration is broken. Okay. You can't speak. I don't remember if that was on there. If you are incapped, when you roll initiative, you have disadvantage on the roll. You know, I just noticed something. All of those abilities from before said incap instead of unconscious. Does that mean I think they're going to change it. All right, here's a theory. Theory time. I think that in the future, getting reduced to 0 hit points is going to incap you, not knock you unconscious. Thoughts? The reason I say that is because so many features from before said this ends when you're in cap. Let me give you an example. Ranger, Hunter's Mark. You don't have to concentrate on the spell once you cast it. It lasts for its full duration until you end it as a bonus or until you're incapacitated. The reason this is important is because this doesn't say unconscious. This says in cap. The logic here is that if you get knocked unconscious, if you get knocked to 0 hit points as a ranger with Hunter's Mark active, you would think that it would end, but it doesn't say that. It just says in cap. Now, the alternative could be that if you're unconscious, you're also in cap. Unconscious may say in cap, but I think it would be very interesting if you get knocked. The reason this is important is because if you get knocked to 0 hit points and you're in cap, you can't take actions or reactions, but you can move. I'm trying to imagine that. Imagine like when you're at 0 hit points and you're at death saves, you can still move. What would that look like? The alternative is unconscious now says in cap. If you're unconscious, you are in cap and you can't move. But I think being knocked to 0 may be in cap now I think you can move while at 0. Crawling, exactly. I think that being at 0, it's a theory, but I think they're going to change being at 0 hit points to being in cap so you can still move. I think you'll be able to move while at 0. Interesting. Influence action. With the influence action, you can try to influence another creature to do something you request or demand. This action can be used only on creatures controlled by the DM, and it isn't mind control. I like how they specified. You can't influence players, and it's not mind control. It can't force a creature to do something that is counter to the creature's alignment or that is... I hate that they mentioned alignment. Counter to the creature's alignment or that is otherwise repugnant to the creature. This action has 3 main parts: attitude, interaction, and a charisma check. Attitude. A creature's attitude determines how a character can influence that creature. Each DM-controlled creature has one of the following attitudes: indifferent, friendly, or hostile. I think we know what these mean, but I guess I'll read them. This is the default attitude for DM control. All right, so indifference is the default. An indifferent creature might help or hinder the party depending on what the creature sees as most beneficial. A creature's indifference doesn't necessarily make it standoffish or disinterested. Indifferent creatures might be polite and genial, surly and irritable, or anything in between. A successful charisma check is often necessary when the adventurers try to persuade an indifferent creature to do something. All right, we know what friendly and hostile mean. Incap would mean you couldn't move or act to do anything. No, incap says incap doesn't say you can't move. You can move while incap. Incap is only actions and reactions. And I'm assuming bonus actions are in there as well. Oh, Interaction. When you take the influence action, either roleplay how your character interacts with the creature or describe your character's behavior, focusing on your character's request or demand. If the interaction is especially suited to the creature's desire and outlook, the DM might grant advantage to your subsequent check or might temporarily shift a hostile to indifferent or an indifferent to friendly. Similarly, if the interaction is particularly irksome to the creature, the DM might impose disadvantage on your subsequent check or might temporarily shift a friendly to indifferent or an indifferent to hostile. Ability check. To determine whether your request or demand is successful, you make a charisma check, animal handling, deception, intimidation, or persuasion. The applicable skill depends on the interaction, with animal handling being reserved for beasts and monstrosities. I like that they specified that. Also, each request or demand requires a different check. The creature's attitude determines the DC required to achieve a specific response, as shown in the influence responses table. DC 10, creature does ask as long as no risk or sacrifice is involved. This is an interesting chart. I was not expecting anything like this. Invisible is now a condition. While you're invisible, you experience the following effects. You can't be seen, so you aren't affected by any effect that requires the target to be seen, and any equipment you're carrying or wearing also can't be seen. If you're invisible when you roll initiative, you have advantage. And attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage. That's very interesting. I'm glad they clarified this because it was unseen attacker and the blinded condition. Now it's like, that's pretty good. Jump action. With the jump action, you attempt to leap more than 5 feet. When you take this action, your speed must be greater than 0, and you must make a DC 10 acrobatics or athletics. If you don't move at least 10 feet immediately before this action, you have disadvantage on the check. On a failed check, you leap 5 feet. On a successful, the check total determines the distance in feet you can clear. This jump doesn't expend your movement, but the distance you clear can't exceed your speed. This jump doesn't expend your movement. That's interesting. Also, it's interesting that the check determines how far you can go. I actually kind of like that. Light weapon property. When you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon in one hand, you can make one extra attack as part of the same action. That extra attack must be made with a different light weapon in the other hand, and you don't add your ability modifier to the extra attack's damage. You can make this extra attack only once on each of your turns. For example, I get it. So this is actually really cool. It doesn't cost you a bonus action to offhand swing. I like this change. I think they have improved dual wielding with this. Long rest is a period of extended downtime, at least 8 hours, available to any creature. During a long rest, you sleep for 6 and you perform no more of 2 hours of light activity, such as reading, talking, eating, or standing watch. When you finish a long rest, you gain the following benefits. Regain all hit point. Regain all spent hit dice. This is huge. I love this. Regain all hit points. If your hit point maximum was reduced, it returns to normal. If any of your ability scores were reduced, they return to normal. You can't benefit from more than one long rest in a 24-hour period, and you must have at least 1 hit point to start one. Love it. Interrupting the rest. If a long rest is interrupted by combat or 1 hour of walking, I hate this. Casting spells or similar activity, the rest confers no benefit and must be restarted. However, the rest was at least 1 hour long. Before the interruption, you gain the benefits of a short rest. Actually, I don't hate this. This is mainly for short rest. I like taking a short rest. I allow short rest while walking. Magic action. Magic action. When you take the magic action, you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, or you use a magic item that requires an action to be activated. If you cast a spell that has a casting time of 1 minute or longer, you must take the magic action. On each turn of that casting, you must maintain concentration while you do so. If you have a casting time, okay, that's okay. Take the magic action and maintain concentration. If your concentration is broken, the spell fails, but you don't expend a spell slot. That's pretty cool. I like that they call it the magic action. It's kind of funny. Kind of reminds me of like Final Fantasy. The Final Fantasy menu is like attack, magic. I don't know why that's where my mind went. Move. When you move, you can go. Whoop, I broke it. When you move, you can go a distance equal to your speed or less. For example, if you have a speed of 30, you can go up to 30 feet when you move. Difficult terrain can slow you down. You can break up your move using some of its movement before or after any action you take on the same turn. For example, if you have 30, you could go 10, take an action, go 20. Love it. During your move, you can pass through a space of an ally, an in-cap creature, a tiny, or a creature who is 2 sizes larger or smaller than you. Another creature space is difficult terrain for you unless that creature is tiny. You can't willingly end your movement in a space occupied by another creature. You can use your speed to climb or swim. Some creatures also have climb speed or swim speed. If you use your speed to climb or swim, each foot of movement costs 1 extra. For example, if you swim or climb 5, you must spend 10 feet of movement. If you're swimming or climbing through difficult terrain, that 5 feet costs 15. Oh, they stack difficult now. Interesting. Some creatures have special speeds, such as climb, fly, swim. If you have more than one, you must choose which one to use each time you take your move. For example, if you have a speed and a climb, you can use one of those speeds when you move, not both, during the same... Wait. You can use one of those speeds when you move, not both during the same move. So you can't... Interesting. That is an odd change. If you take more than one move, or it may not be a change, but I didn't know you... If this was always the case, I had no idea. That's very interesting, though. I had no idea that you couldn't like spend 15 feet of movement and then climb another 15. That's interesting. If you take more than one move on a turn and have more than one speed, each move can use the same speed or a different one. For example, if you have both the speed of fly and you take the dash on your turn. For example, if you have both a speed and a fly speed, and you take the dash action on your turn, you could use your speed for the move and fly for the dash, or vice versa. Interesting. Speed of 0. If an effect zeroes your speed for any time, any special speed you have is also zeroed. For example, I get it. If it's zeroed, you're zeroed. If you're grappled, you can't climb. Musical instruments are a category of tool with which a character can gain tool proficiency. For a list of musical instruments, see PHP. But ignore the prices there. They now cost 20. Man, that is steep for a musical instrument. Primal Spells. Draw from the force of nature and the inner planes. That's the elemental planes. Feywild and Shadowfell. Druids and Rangers harness this magic. For a partial list of Primal Spells, see the spell list section. Ritual casting. If you have a spell prepared that has a ritual tag, you can cast that spell as a ritual. A special feature is no longer required for ritual casting. Love it. You can take the search action now. When you take the search action, you make a wisdom check to discern something that isn't obvious. The search table suggests which skills are applicable. Insight to search a creature's state of mind. A medicine to search a creature's ailment. Perception, concealed creature or object, and survival tracks food. I'm surprised investigation isn't here. I mean, I guess it is a wisdom check. Surprised investigation didn't make the list. Short sword is now a simple weapon now. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Slowed condition. This is a new condition. While you are slowed, you experience the following effects. Limited movement. You must spend 1 extra foot of movement for every foot you move using your speed. Attack rolls against you have advantage, and you have disadvantage on dex saves. It's pretty cool. It's simple. I like it. More conditions, please. Lots more. Not just this one. I want lots more. Study is now an action. When you take the study action, you can make intelligence check to study your memory, a book, a creature, clue, object, etc. The areas of knowledge table suggest which skills are applicable when you take this action. So I actually had a look at this already, and I was very intrigued by some of these. For one, undead are no longer under Arcana. Undead were always in religion. It was just weird that they're not in Arcana. There was another one. Dragons aren't Arcana. They're nature now. That's very interesting. Giants and humanoids have always been history. Aberration, construct, elemental, fey, monstrosities for Arcana. Celestials, fiends, and undead are religion. Yeah, dragons being nature instead of Arcana was the one that stood out to me. Beasts have always been nature. I feel like oozes were different. Oozes may have been Arcana. I don't remember. They nerfed Arcana basically. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Arcana did cover a lot of monsters. I'm cool with them, breaking it up. Swim speed can be used to move through liquid without expending extra movement, normally associated with swimming. Tool proficiency. If you have proficiency with a tool, you can add your proficiency bonus to any ability check you make that uses that tool. If you have proficiency in the skill that also used with that check, you have advantage on the check too. This means you can benefit from both skill and tool on the same ability check. What is a skill? Hold on a second. What does that mean? I guess they're saying that you can have a sleight of hand thieves tools check, in which case you would get your proficiency bonus and advantage. I'm going to read this one more time. If you have proficiency with a tool, you can add your proficiency bonus to any ability check you make that uses that tool. So far, so good. If you have proficiency in the skill that's also used with that check, you have advantage on the check too. So double proficiency basically means advantage. This means you can benefit from both skill and tool. Okay. So the way I'm understanding this is sleight of hand thieves tools would be sleight of hand, or thieves tools would add your proficiency bonus. Like let's say you're a rogue, you add your proficiency bonus, and then the sleight of hand gives you advantage if you have proficiency. Teleportation is a special kind of magical transportation. If you teleport, you disappear and reappear elsewhere instantly without moving through the intervening space. This transportation doesn't expend movement unless a rule tells you otherwise, and teleportation never provokes attack of ops. When you teleport, all equipment you are wearing and carrying teleports with you. If you're touching another creature when you teleport, that creature doesn't teleport with you unless the teleport says otherwise. If the destination space of your teleport is occupied by another creature or blocked, you instead appear in the nearest unoccupied space. The description of teleportation effect tells you if you must see the destination. Tremor Sense. A creature with Tremor Sense can pinpoint the location of creatures and moving objects within a specific range, provided that creature with Tremor Sense and anything, provided that the creature with Tremor Sense and anything it's detecting are both in contact with the same surface, such as ground, wall, or ceiling, or the same liquid. Tremor Sense can't detect creatures or objects in the air. And Tremor Sense doesn't count as a form of sight. Interesting. Unarmed Strike. Actually, you know what? I do want to comment on this. Doesn't count as a form of sight means that Tremor Sense will not give you attack of ops when somebody moves out of your threatened range. It also means that you can't target people with spells with tremors. Like if you have tremor, like let's say you can't see, but you have Tremor Sense. You can't target people with spells that require sight. You don't get attack of ops if people move out of your threatened range. It does not count as a form of sight. An unarmed strike is a melee attack that involves you using your body to damage, grapple, or shove a target within your reach. Your bonus to hit with an unarmed strike equals your strength mod plus your proficiency. On a hit, your unarmed strike causes one of the following effects. Damage, 1 plus your strength, bludgeoning. You can grapple, 8 plus strength mod plus proficiency to escape. No more opposed. And shove, push the target 5 feet away or knock them prone. Okay, that's the doc. We did it. We got through the expert classes doc. Unfortunately, my stream died. Those of you that are watching the video, my stream died, so chat died right there at the end. But I wanted to finish the doc, so I went ahead and knocked it out. I will see you all at sundown.